focused.
Oh, are you talking to me? I was talking to Jen. I apologize. I was like, in my own world. I'm good. I always do that too.
That's always me, like in the newsrooms. I never know.
It's like,
You never know when they're talking to you or not. Okay, I'm all set if you want to begin.
Okay, we good?
mm-hmm.
Okay. On April 1st of 2000, the Janesville Police Department responded to 922 Sutherland Avenue in the city of Janesville for a forcible rape and a burglary. It occurred in the early morning hours on that day. The investigation into that showed that an unknown male had entered the house and sexually assaulted a 79-year-old Janesville resident, a female who lived there. The suspect fled the scene before officers arrived, and the officers conducted the investigation, collected numerous items of evidence, including DNA evidence, which was subsequently submitted to the state crime lab for testing. The investigation continued on at the police department until eventually we had followed up on all the leads we had, and at that point we were unable to identify the suspect in this case, so the case went cold. On January 12th of this year, 2017, we received notification from the state crime lab that they had done a routine search of the CODIS DNA system or data bank, which showed a hit on the DNA that we submitted from the 2000 case to a man by the name of Kelly L. Baxter. Baxter was arrested by the Rock County Sheriff's Department in 2014 for a sexual assault to a child incident that they investigated. He was subsequently convicted of fourth-degree sexual assault on that case, and in November of 2016, let me check my notes here. Yeah, November, after his conviction for fourth-degree sexual assault, DNA was collected and submitted based on state law for violent crimes and sex offenses. His DNA was submitted for that conviction to the database. Once it was put into the database, the crime lab conducted a routine search, which then hit on Baxter's DNA, and they notified us of the match. Yesterday, February 22nd, Detective Eric Goff contacted Mr. Baxter by phone, who agreed to come to the police department and speak with him. Baxter came to the police department, spoke briefly with Detective Goff, and then was arrested for second-degree sexual assault and burglary stemming from the April 1st, 2000 incident on Sutherland. He was taken to the Rock County Jail, where he was held for a preliminary court appearance. Questions?
If we submitted the sample in, I think, November of 2016, so a few months ago, they don't run their checks every day, or maybe you don't know how they do that?
Yeah, I don't know the frequency that they run. I don't know what the frequency is without checking with the crime lab of their routine checks.
And so it says January 12th is when you were notified that it matched Baxter. What was the length, like why did it take so long to make contact with him to arrest him yesterday?
Well, because it's such an old case, basically 17 years old, we had to gather the reports and everything we still had on the case, go through the evidence again. And also we needed to confer with the Rock County District Attorney's Office, who reviewed the case, to offer their legal advice on how to proceed. So that's why there was a delay in the date, from the date that we got the information to the date of arrest.
And when you did get the initial notification, what just was your reaction to knowing that this was a hit from 17 years ago.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I mean, the DNA law for violent offenders in Wisconsin was expanded, I believe, in 2015. It appears that Kelly Baxter's DNA fell under that new expansion of the law, and it was, I guess proof, just showed proof that that law does work even 17 years later to identify a suspect in a violent crime like this one. So it was exciting.
Can you talk more about that DNA law? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have the exact date. I think it was somewhere around mid-2015. Wisconsin expanded the DNA collection law for violent felony offenders and listed several different crimes that DNA collection would be mandatory. Sexual assault was one of those crimes. So upon conviction for specified crimes in the DNA collection law, DNA is collected and then submitted to the database to be searched to hopefully solve unsolved crimes such as this one. So.
And we understand that the victim was older.
Mm-hmm.
Is she still alive?
The victim is deceased. She still has some family members that live in the city. The family has been notified. They were notified prior to our press release that we had DNA evidence linking a suspect to the crime and that an arrest was going to be made. So,
Do you know when she died?
I don't have that date. No.
And what was the family's reaction?
From what I understand, I didn't talk to, it was a daughter, but from what I understand from Detective Goff is that she was relieved that somebody finally has been identified in this crime and that they would be brought to court to be tried or be arrested for the crimes and see where let the court process take place. So she was relieved.
And this type of burglary, what was it like in 2000 when this happened? Was it, a crime that was shocking to the community? How did it impact Janesville?
Yeah, well, it's a serious crime. I think anytime you have something like this where somebody is sexually assaulted, in this case, an elderly lady who lives alone, somebody breaks into her house and then sexually assaults her like that. It's pretty shocking to our community. We don't have a lot of, I wouldn't say we have a lot of those types of crimes, and it's definitely something that we want to solve. And when we, years later, basically came to a dead end and we weren't able to solve it, that's disheartening for us. So it is satisfying to us that, here years later that we can still continue to pursue this, and bring who we believe is the suspect in this case to justice.
17 years is a long time. Is this the longest you guys have had for a cold case? Solving something like this, getting a lead 17 years later?
In my 25-year career, I've never heard of a case that here at Janesville Police Department that we've been able to solve, that many years later. Certainly with the DNA evidence, it's probably the first of its kind for us here at Janesville PD. With respect to the length of time in between when it was committed and when the DNA match was made.
Are there any other unsolved cases that are similar to this one that you think this suspect might also be associated with?
At this time, we're looking into all possibilities to see if there are any links to any crimes, whether in Janesville, the surrounding area, anywhere he may have lived. We're certainly interested in seeing if there's any link to some of the other crimes, because that is quite a extensive time frame from the 2000 sexual assault even to the 2014 case where he was arrested by Rock County for a sex offense and eventually convicted. So we're looking into the possibilities. At this point, there's no certain cases in particular, but we're not ruling anything out.
Were there any other DNA hits for Mr. Baxter from the crime lab that you know of?
Since his DNA was put into
Right.
on other cases, I'm not aware of any. Although, if there were, generally what happens on a DNA hit, they will notify the agency who submitted the sample to begin with, and we wouldn't be notified of that.
If it was another jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Has he lived in Janesville the past 17 years, or?
I don't know his, again, I'm not the lead detective on this case, so I don't know where all of his residents are. Our detectives that are working on it are familiar with that. I do know that when he was arrested yesterday, he gave a Janesville address on Cherry Street.
What was that address?
106 Cherry Street.
And then I guess just how is this, finding or getting DNA, an arrest 17 years later or any amount of time later, is this common? Is this rare? Like what, just for comparison?
Well, I think this is rare only because of the time span that we have. It certainly is a direct result of the law that I spoke about from 2015, the expansion of the DNA collection. Without that, we still probably wouldn't have a name today. So, being that law and the DNA collection is relatively new, talking from 2015 on for the expansion of the DNA collection, I would imagine that this may become more common, that matches are made through the DNA comparison. The statute of limitations has run out for these crimes. However, with DNA, the law also, there's a provision in the law that once a DNA hit is made through the database, if it's being actively searched, the entire time, which this one has been, once the match is made, there's 12 months that that arrest can be made and have the person brought to court. So, although the statute of limitations ran out, there is an exception for DNA evidence, which we have in this case. So, that was another thing, we needed to confer with the DA's office to, because this was so old, just, exactly how can we proceed with this legally? So we had to get their advice.
Absent the DNA evidence, what is the statute of limitations then?
Well, for a felony, a statute of limitations would be 6 years.
When he spoke to Detective Goth yesterday, did he admit or deny or say anything about the allegation?
It was I can't really go into details about that conversation that he had. I'll just say that it was a relatively short conversation, and there wasn't a whole lot of details given.
Have you heard, is he in court today?
I haven't heard. 3 p.m., is that what somebody found out that he was?
We thought we heard that, but yeah.
Yeah, I have not, I haven't heard.
Well, did he serve jail time for the 2014 when he was arrested in 2016?
I believe on the 4th degree sexual assault conviction, I believe he was sentenced to 24 months probation. I don't think there was any jail time in his sentence on that.
Is there anything else we need to know?
Nope, nothing else.
Hate that.
No, I think that covers it.
Thank you.
Yep.